I'm really a guy who lives out in the woods. Don't have any of those special fancy titles. But I am a father, and I want my children to live in a Christian nation. And I want my children to live in a Christian nation.
All right, welcome back to The Lone Bulwark. I'm Stephen Wolfe. So today I want to talk a little bit about a Twitter thread that I put out, I guess it was this morning. It was on division in the Christian nationalist world. And I mentioned Doug Wilson and all that, so I wanted to give some clarity and I guess expound upon what I said in that Twitter thread. I've seen a lot of people, really for quite a while, on Twitter saying that Christian nationalism is divisive, and it's not only that, it's dividing amongst itself. It's just like the old theonomists and the Reconstructionists and how they fought amongst each other, and they ended up kind of imploding, didn't have their own kind of solid movement to themselves, and ended up kind of just dying away. I took that critique. I take those critiques seriously, and I've seen it so many times, and I think it's time to officially respond to that. I've been accused, and with all of the people associated with me, of being divisive, and I want to point out that that's actually completely false. And so this thread, which here it is, that was my attempt to do that, clarify a little bit the state of things. Because by appearances, people might think, Christian nationalism is failing, it's divided. People who associate with it are now dividing and splintering from one another. It's just like the old thing of, it's just like theonomy of old. But that's actually not true. It is not true. You have, what you have is you have Christian nationalism, which is just one label that people take. I've taken it. Some other people have adopted it, like Joel Webbin. But that's just one part. Actually, in fact, it's not even a part. It's a label for certain people in the Christian New Right, which is much broader than the label itself. And in fact, there's a lot of people who have not adopted the label who actually agree with me on 99 to sometimes 100%. So my friend C.J. Engel is one of those cases. He and I agree on a tremendous amount. I don't know where we've disagreed, actually, but we agree on a tremendous amount. And he does not affirm the label. He has his own reasons. I've said from the very beginning, from the get-go, from probably the very first interview I said, I don't care if you don't adopt the label Christian nationalism. In fact, I don't care if the label disappears in 5 to 10 years. I mean this from the heart, from head and heart here. All I've wanted from the beginning is to convince people not of a label, but of ideas. If in 10 years from now, you have a massive Christian movement that is convinced by the ideas, but they don't call themselves Christian nationalists, I would be 100% on board with that. I would be happy. I'd be happy. And in fact, if you had a whole group of people who called themselves Christian nationalists, who didn't agree with the ideas, but agreed with something the opposite of it, then I would not be happy. It's not about the label. It's just a term that I use to capture a set of ideas. I care about the ideas. And you know what? There are a lot of people who agree with the ideas, but for one reason or another, many of them very legitimate, have chosen not to say, I'm Christian nationalist. I myself often call myself just a classical Protestant. It depends on the situation. In a way, I think that my work is Christian nationalist, but the vast majority of the content of my ideas is just taken from classical Protestantism. It's either assumed in the book or it's argued for in the book, and you can find it as, I would say, the majority positions of classical Protestantism. So I could call myself a classical Protestant, and in that way, actually, it communicates clearer what I believe than just saying Christian nationalist. Unfortunately, it's at this point. So, anyway, I don't care about the. But the other thing too is that in terms of, let me just say, kind of the bottom line up front. That's the bluff. There is not disunity among the Christian New Right, again, of which the label is a part of that. It's only a label. It's not a part in terms of ideas. It's a label in the Christian New Right, which is much broader than even like the current disputes you see on Twitter, okay? It's much broader than that. And among that crowd, there is remarkable unity, probably best described as unity of effort. Even though we don't always agree on strategy, or our strategies are different, we recognize someone else's strategy works for them, given their audience, and this other group has another strategy for their audience. That's all fine. We constructively cooperate behind the scenes. We constructively encourage one another behind the scenes. And the network, I mean, everyone has their core people, but the network of this is massive. This is where I think people perceive division, because they think Christian nationalism is just some kind of part of the new right. And so they see people who identify with the label who dispute, and therefore that means Christian nationalism, that the ideas associated with it are then dividing themselves. But that's not the case. As I already said, people are in group chats. They are discussing things. They're discussing engagement. They're agreeing with one another. Sometimes there's disagreement, but it's always friendly. People are in this Christian right are either friends, close, or maybe a little distant friends, or they have friendly associations with them, or they have friends of friends. And who are the friends of the friends. And so it's just a large network of people who are united. Or at the very least, I'd say they're united. At the very least, they're not prone to purity spiraling. They're not prone to creating division. They're not prone to trying to boost their audience by attacking someone else within the broad camp. This is not like the old theonomic battles. This is not like the old wars you saw where people would split over, an interpretation of a verse in Deuteronomy. That's not at all what is happening here. So what is happening here? That's why I did this thread. I don't have my mouse, so you're not going to get the other end of it. But let me start off with you can read the thread. I'll keep it on this. Let me start with a little bit of the history of this, okay? I wrote the book in 2021 and early 2022, and I submitted it, like the first draft in like March of 22 or April or something like that. And then you get edits and all that. At no time when I was writing the book, The Case for Christian Nationalism, was I thinking, the canon guys are going to adopt Christian nationalism, and Doug Wilson's going to call himself a Christian nationalist, and we're going to be, part of this movement together, and we're going to have to deal with each other and coordinate and this and that. Not once did I think that. I wasn't even sure what was going to happen when the book came out. Most books, if they're noticed at all, they show up. Maybe they'll start a controversy here or there. There's disagreement. Maybe they're widely read. If certain people, like Carl Trueman wrote that Modern Self book, and like 99% of it, just everyone decided, oh, look how great it is. It actually wasn't as great as people thought, but he's a celebrity. I just thought maybe 2-3 months would be disputes. I figured since I have a PhD, I'm writing. It's the Case for Christian Nationalism. I thought it'd be picked up from the left and the right, but like everything else, people move on. The news cycle moves on. I did not know that there'd be like a sort of waves of disputes. Like it started off. Well, I'll get there. It starts off with a certain set of disputes, and then in 23 there's like a series of disputes, and then 24. Was new opponents arise, and the old opponents, like I guess they got beat up enough and they left. But it's just continuing even to this day. We're almost into 2025. I did not expect this. I didn't really know what to expect exactly what would happen, but here we are. Anyway, that's enough of that. I did not think that Doug Wilson would call himself a Christian nationalist. When I first heard that he did, this is what I was expecting them to put it out there, and then if it was controversial, maybe Doug would do a post that said, I agree with this, I agree with that, I agree with this, I don't, like he would just kind of lay it out of where he stands with this, because I knew, given the content of the book, that he wasn't going to be 100% aligned with it, or at least I thought he wasn't going to be, and of course he's not. But I thought that's how it would play out. A publisher is not morally or legally obligated to adopt the label or any of the content of the book that they publish. They just have to say, to be a legitimate publisher, that we thought this book was worthy of publication, to, in this case, to contribute to Christian political discourse or whatever. And that's it. They wouldn't have to turn it into a movement. When Doug did, my first thought was, man, he read the book and I convinced him. I convinced him of these things. It turns out that I don't think that I convinced him of anything. I've never heard him say, I read Wolfe and therefore I no longer believe this, I believe that. I never heard him say that. I don't know. But he did, and it was very kind of confusing at the time. And there's different theories as to why he did that. One would be that he saw the negative attention. A bunch of his friends were like, which this is actually true. A bunch of his friends were like, why would you publish he's not post-mill, I don't know, he's not paedo-communion. He talks about natural law. He's a Thomist. He believes in all those dualisms. And now Doug's like, oh no. And so he says, well, I'm going to become the Christian nationalist and I'm going to lead this thing with my own personality and writing and whatever through canon and the other things. That's one theory. I think part of that is probably kind of true, at least in effect. I don't know if that was his initial thinking, or it could be, hey, this is my chance to take the energy of a movement, of the idea, and be edgy and advance my ideas via the label. Maybe that's what I don't know. I honestly just don't know. Even to this day, I do not know why they chose the route that they did when they didn't have to choose that route by publishing the book. All right. So when the book comes out, a lot of people in the canon Moscow orbit were very, very critical of me. So the first review was Peter Leithart, which was negative. And then the next one was, Brian Mattson, who's in like the Kuyperian, neo-Kuyperian Bavinck world, friends with Andrew Sandlin, who's friends with Doug Wilson. And then eventually I start getting kind of negative attention from James White, and then later on it's Joe Boot. Before that, Andrew Sandlin's attacking me on Facebook and elsewhere for being Thomist and a lot of dumb stuff. So everyone in Doug's orbit is now attacking him. Then there's the Theopolis crowd who try to dig up dirt, like literally have screenshots of the people talking about trying to dig up dirt on me. And in the end, what they did was dox a friend just to try to get at me. That's all in the Theopolis Institute orbit, which is tied to all these guys, including Doug Wilson. So in his entire orbit, they're criticizing me. And the reason why is because I think Doug has chosen this label. And now they're trying to create distance between me and him to beat down my ideas that they consider, I don't know, Romanist or something like that. I don't know. It was all dumb. It's really just dumb, to be honest with you. It's tiring because it's low level. Anyway, so you have all that. There's all that negativity towards me. And then as you read Doug's political thought, he wrote Mere Christendom. I was expecting Mere Christendom to be a book in which Doug was defined his views opposite of mine in a very clear way, which that book didn't do at all. My guess is that most of that book was written before he knew I even existed. And so that was very disappointing. But if you actually read the substance of it, Doug is closer to all those other guys. He is closer to White, Boot, Sandlin, Mattson, that world. That's the world he's in. And so, yeah, there's differences between me and him. Now, as things developed, so I was not entirely alone back then, but I was pretty much alone. As things have developed now, and things were developing in the new right already because of Trump's victory in 2016 and also like the 2020 election and COVID thing, there was just a resurgent new right. Among that new right was a resurgent Christian right. So since the book came out, there has been a robust, as I said, a Christian new right that has developed. And to this day, we are unified, friendly, we're not purity spiraling, we're constructive, and we're cooperating. Okay? That has developed. The influence of that crowd, the people who influence that crowd are largely paleoconservative political theorists or someone at the popular level like Pat Buchanan and other people. Also, like you could call them the old right before like the Buckley sort of new right and later on, before the neoconservatives, and even older theorists as well. So it's an intellectual older right that has developed that we can call now the Christian new right. It's really kind of the Christian new right, but whatever, we'll call it the Christian new right. The ideas associated with the Christian new right as it is today do not fit with the 20th century, late 20th century boomer political theology of the Doug Wilson, James White, Joe Boot, Andrew Sandler, that crowd. That is like, to put it simplistically, I admit, it's like if Reagan were a Calvinist, that's what it is. It's Reagan, it's Reaganomics with some Calvinism and theonomy mixed in. Yeah, it's wild. I mean, the timeless politics of Jesus just was captured perfectly in the 80s. But anyway, the point being that theology or political theology or politics does not fit well with the Christian new right in substance. So then what you're seeing in the disputes today, you're seeing one guy in this camp who affirms the label Christian nationalist, who is accidentally related to people in this camp, in the Christian new right, who also affirm the label. It's purely accidental. It's not substantive. Okay, that's the crucial point here. The crucial point is the disputes between a few people in the Christian new right crowd is disputing with another guy who in substance is different from this bigger group, but because they share the same label of Christian nationalist, it appears as if Christian nationalism is splitting apart, is dividing. But it's all appearance. It's an accidental relationship. Okay, so one, it's accidental. Two, it's between one guy in this camp and like 4 or 5 guys in this huge camp over here. Okay, and again, the label in Christian New Right is simply a label because many people in the Christian New Right also agree with the ideas, just don't affirm the label. Okay, so that's very important. So it's accidental. It's between one guy over here and a handful of guys over here. And lastly, it's actually, when you think about it, it's a big dispute between the individuals involved, but it's a small dispute in the broader scheme of things. It's not about Christian nationalism. It's not about ideas. It's between these guys, between a small number of guys. And so it is not what people think it is. There is remarkable unity among the right, among the Christian right. And you should not let appearances get in the way of your assessment of the viability of the ideas of Christian nationalism or the Christian New Right. We are strong. We are unified. We are constructively building things, despite the opposition from not only the left, but also people in the Christian world as well. So what this places, I think, Doug Wilson in this weird spot that he's inserted himself via labels into a group of people. And this is important, he is the divisive one. Okay, he is the one doing the dividing. This is just really important. He's the one who has canceled from Moscow Andrew Isker. He's the one who told Joel Webbin that, Joel, if you interview Andrew Isker, then I'm going to close you off from Moscow. Last week, he in effect closed off the Ogden guys from Moscow, even after inviting them there to talk. No one, this is the thing, within the Christian New Right, there's two types of people. The majority of those people don't care what Doug Wilson thinks. They don't care. They care less about what Joe Boot and James White think. And they don't even know who Andrew Sandlin is. They don't know who Joe Boot is either. But anyway, you have the Christian New, so you have that group of people. And then you have a smaller group of people who, historically have had respect for these guys, and they don't want to be in a dispute with them. I don't want to build my brand. Joel Webbin doesn't want to build his brand. Oscar, Andrew Isker, the Ogden guys, they don't want to build their brand on attacking Doug Wilson because everyone knows it's not a zero-sum game. It's not a zero-sum game. You can like Canon and subscribe to Canon Plus and also like Joel Webbin's Right Response show. You can do both. You can like both. You can buy Doug Wilson's books and watch his videos and read his blog and also watch this video of me and appreciate. It's not a zero-sum game. None of us actually want to be in a dispute. And this really could have been different. Even if Doug wanted to go after the perceived anti-Semites and the perceived racists out in there, he could have just done so in a way that maintained the tension that was already there. I mean, there's been tension between me and the Canon guys since even before the book came out. If you guys have followed the history, which I won't go through all of it, there's been tension for the whole time. But we've been able to maintain a relationship that was mainly positive despite all that. But now what you get that. But now what Doug has done is instead of just attacking these 100-follower anons on Twitter, or these guys who are making memes, or these guys who are making videos, just random guys, instead of only attacking them, he's now given all of us, the more, figureheads of the movement, essentially ultimatums. You're going to join my strategy and beat these guys down, or you're out. Again, he's the one who escalated this stuff. I disagreed with his strategy. I thought it was counterproductive. I thought in attacking these younger, kind of smaller, follower count guys, I thought it was a failing strategy. I thought it was counterproductive. I think it has achieved the opposite of what he sought in it. But whatever, we have a disagreement on that. He didn't have to raise it to the bar of ultimatum. Because again, he's doing this. He claims he's purifying the CN movement. But again, I want to say again, he is only accidentally related to the Christian New Right via labels. So he's trying to get us to be on his strategy, even though he's in a way not even a natural part of our movement. So I don't know. I don't know, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. People think that I'm deeply invested in the dispute with Doug. I mean, literally it's like tweets. I've never written a blog post on it. I did make fun of James White because, he's easy to troll. I did, I'm not actually I don't spend my days in the group chats. How do we deal with Doug here? No, it's something pops up, I respond, I go about with my day. And that's probably what most people are doing when they respond to him. People are not emotionally. We have other things going on that are far more important than dealing with, this old, old innovative theology from the 80s. I'm sorry. It's we have better things to deal with. So why am I responding to this? This is not for him or James White or anything. This is just my response to the average guy who might be kind of online or is online and has a kind of a sense of where things are. If you join the Christian New Right as just an average dude, you're joining a group of people who are committed to not purity spiraling. We're committed to constructive criticism among our own, where we do it for the most part behind the scenes, and so that we can all be better and we can win. That is what we're doing. And that is what you are joining. Now, as I say this, again, it's not a zero sum. If you like Canon Plus and like watching 1010, that's great. Do that. If you like reading, like watching some of the videos that Canon puts out or the Wade Show, which is great, that's awesome. Do that. You can do all that stuff and also be on our side. I'm not telling you that in order to be on our side, you're joining a war with them. That's really just a silly, small little part that is very visible online. That is not what we're asking anyone to do. If you like stuff that I put out, if you like stuff that comes out of, Ogden guys, or what Joel Webbin's doing, or you like Andrew Isker and CJ Engel, just, that doesn't mean you have to then have an oppositional stance to these other guys. I would gladly, if I could wake up tomorrow and just be done with all that, with like disputes with those guys, I would love it. Just all done, just done. And it could be that way. It absolutely could be that way. So anyway, I guess that's it. How long was that? 25 minutes. So now you have the whole story. If you have any questions about this event or what's happening here, just please do comments and stuff. Beginning Wednesday, January 1st, I'm putting out the Scholar Series. So I'm going to do a series on logic, and you're going to learn classical propositional logic over the series of 2 or 3 months, and then other logics too, and Aristotle. You have to sign up for it. My Patreon account. If you are a seminary student, you get a deal. It's $4. I mean, come on. Some people are paying like $12, but a seminary student, just because I care about, right-thinking seminarians, you guys can get it for about $4. So please sign up for that if you are interested, and let me know if there's any questions or concerns. All right. Thank you very much. I'll see you guys next time.